Hi, and welcome to this lecture on Adobe Illustrator from Eduonix Technologies. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about panels and workspaces. It's going to be a relatively quick video. This is about the third video, and we're just now getting into Illustrator itself. First, let's take a look at the workspace in general. As I previously mentioned, over here we have the panels. Now, this is set to default. I'm going to go up to Window, Workspace, and I'm going to set it to something like, let's use painting. Now what this did is it kept the less important panels for painting hidden, and it expanded the ones that you tend to use the most often. It also stacked them. So we have our layers, which is pretty much useful for everything. We have brushes, obviously, stroke and symbols. It also arranges each of the panels into its own little window. And then color and swatches. And this is a custom workspace. This is a saved preset workspace that you would use if you were painting. So I don't use the preset workspaces that much, but I do save my own. If I have a document that I'm working on and these options are the ones that I use the most, I would save it. And to do that, you go up to Window, Workspace, and New Workspace. You give it a name, Untitled Workspace, and then you can always access these by going to Window, Workspace, and they pop up right here. You can also, if you go to Manage Workspaces, you can delete and rename them. It's pretty basic. So most of the things that change with a workspace are the panels. However, you can change the placement of these tools. You can have this stacked like this. This is particularly good for low resolution screens. I have mine set to this because I'm using a big monitor, and it saves room, and it's a big thing with workspaces, is saving room, and generally Illustrator is geared to make that really easy, because when you start working on complex things, you're going to have panels flying all over the place. Just an example, let's get into the panels again. So there's a number of things I can do to organize these. Let's make a custom workspace. Before I do that, I'm going to load Essentials, the basic workspace, so that we can kind of start from scratch. Let's say I'm making something with a lot of shapes and type, and it has a lot of colors, and I constantly need to access colors. Over here is the character panel. If I click on that, it pops out. Now, if I click on the document, it'll stay out. But if I go on to another panel, so to keep this open, I'm going to want to drag it off the screen here. And you notice something when I was dragging it initially, that it lit up blue over here. And that'll tell you whenever you're making a new stack of panels or new workspace, it'll indicate what's going to happen when you release the mouse button. For example, if I wanted to put it back, you see how the blue line appears just underneath the top icon, or the icon on the very bottom. That means that this is going to appear as an icon right at the bottom. And now you see three icons here. That might be a little confusing, but if you notice, they're in a box with a little bar up here. This is what you grab onto if you want to pull it out. here's why that there's 3 icons. There are 3 tabs here, basically 3 panels in one. So paragraph, character, and stroke. Honestly, I don't know what stroke's doing in there, but it groups things logically. So when I do drag this over here, it will appear as 3 icons. Let's expand all these for right now and see what happens. And if you ever see these double triangle icons on the top of your panels, that's basically expand and collapse. Now right now there's a few panels that aren't open that I do want. I'm going to collapse these again, and I'm going to go to Window. And these are all the panels that you can have. So I want color for starters. So now, as you can see, open up gradient, transparency, swatches, and color as well. These all go really well together. If I don't want one of them, I can just drag it out and hit the X, which will basically take it off of this panel. I'm just going to go through here and make my custom workspace, and then I'm going to save it like we did a little bit earlier so you can see. And I'm going to do everything a little bit differently so you can see different ways of doing things. So in this, I like it the way it is. So there's gradients, swatches, and color. Those all go well together. For type, which is right here, I want this to be with paragraph, but I want to get rid of stroke. So I could drag this out like we did before and hit the X button. So for character and paragraph, I want those two to be together. And I want to take stroke, and I still want to keep this, but I don't want it to be in that panel, so I'm going to drag that out. Layers are always important. They kind of deserve to be in their own panel. I'm going to be using Pathfinder. I don't really care about graphic styles, so I'm going to exit out of that one. And let's say these were open. I'll show you other ways of getting rid of them. As you can see, you can access the same things. Everything under this line is the panels on the right. So I could look at them as a list and determine what I don't like either and what I want to get rid of. Which would be, we're almost there. I don't need image trace, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to collapse it again here. So right now, yeah, so let's drag out the ones that are the most important out of everything we have. I've kept things that I might use, and I'm going to want to create an expanded panel based on what's the most important. So I want stroke to be on top. And you see how a blue line has popped up right there? Just like when we expanded it before, it's going to start off a new one. So you have to move it around until the line lights up for you. It's really hard for me to describe. where it has to be exactly, but it lights up and lets you know. So these ones, since they're expanded, I'm only going to be able to fit like 4 or 5 in realistically. That's why we put the most important ones over here. So I would have to say color, same thing, a blue line. Also, if I did this, if you have an enormous screen, you can create 2, 3, or as many as you want. But right now, let's just move this down here, right under stroke. Pathfinder, I'd be using that quite often. However, I don't want it to be right under color, so let's put appearances right under color. And then let's put Pathfinder. And as you can tell, my auto hide task bar was getting in the way down here, so I just took that off. And as you can see, appearances is taking up a lot of space, but that's just because it's the only thing there and it's filling out the container. If I were to take it out, you can see how big it really is, and if you were to put something in there, it would share the space. Just took my my Windows bar down here off of auto hide because it was getting in the way. Since I have my mouse down here, it likes to flick up and down, and it was kind of annoying. So anyway, we're going to keep building this important section based on these over here. So what else do I want over here? Pathfinder. And I could put it in the middle also. You know, it's pretty intuitive as to where you can put things. If you notice the appearance panel, it'll take up this entire panel. Whatever is in here, it'll distribute it relatively evenly. And after I put things in, I can also adjust them. Here's the color box, which has a default size of about that big. I like mine to be about that big, but you can make it as well. You can make it as big as you want, down up to this size. So we're going to make it this big. Now Pathfinder, on the other hand, you don't really adjust the size of something like this. There's 10 options. They're very finite, and you can expand them to different levels by double clicking on their titles as well. Any way to actually adjust the size of Pathfinder. But you won't have to worry about all that. It does it all pretty much automatically. So just a few more here. Layers. And I think this will actually do it. If I wanted to fit more in, I could collapse these by double clicking on them. And you can only collapse them when they're in this expanded mode. Obviously you can't collapse icons. Also, since I have the tab system, I can add something as a tab. As you see, the blue part lights up here, and there's a blue square around the panel which it's going to go into. I could add everything on here if I wanted to. And there's really no reason not to if you have a large display. It keeps things, having things out like this is really helpful. Of course, we do have the control panel up here, which I tend to use more often than this. I like to zoom in a lot. I like to get really close in with my documents. There's nothing on it right now, so there's no point in doing it, but as you can see, if I did want it to be really large, the best thing to do would be to have these collapsed. It's all really up to you, and you can position these virtually any way you want, as you've seen so far. All you have to do is pay attention to what the blue boxes and the blue lines are doing, and well, I made my custom workspace. But let's do something other than just the panels. Now, there's not much else to go into as far as creating a custom workspace. But I'm going to create a new document so you can see more of the actual workspace. Just a blank document. As you can see, it created it as a tab up here. And if I go to Window, Arrange, so I've created my custom workspace. I have it how I want it. There's just a few more options to go over. Up here in the corner of each of the panels, there's an Options. Now, for most of these, there are options that don't appear in the panels themselves. So it's good to keep in mind if you don't see it, for example, in stroke. So right now it doesn't have a lot that's there. It's because I have hide options on. So when I go to show options, it shows them. It's different than collapsing it. As you can see, you can cycle through the different amounts of information for each panel by double clicking the tab. So just like before, I have my custom workspace created, and I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, New Workspace, and I'm going to name it Gibberish. Well, that about does it for this video. Just join me next time and we'll learn a little bit more about Illustrator.